In the final stages of cancer, my only chance at life-saving chemotherapy was bought out by Frank and given to Rachel, who was in the early stages. I gave up on the doctor's life-saving plan and swallowed strong pain-blocking medication. The price was organ failure and death in 3 days. During these 3 days, I gave up everything. When I handed over all my hard-earned assets to Rachel, my parents smiled with satisfaction. When Frank presented the divorce papers and I signed without hesitation, he sighed and said I was very understanding. When I pushed Lily to call Rachel Mom, she excitedly said Mom was the best. Even when I gave all my properties and assets to Rachel, they didn't notice anything wrong. They just looked at me with contentment and said, "Our sensible Chloe has finally come back." But I'm also curious, will they remember me after I die under the doctor's pitying gaze? I swallowed the pain-blocking medication. I had 3 days left to live. After taking the medicine, I went to Rachel's hospital room inside. Dad was peeling an orange for Rachel while Mom chatted with her. When they saw me enter, the smiles on my parents' faces instantly turned cold. What done pretending to be sick? And here to pick on Rachel again. Chloe, I'm warning you. Don't you dare bully Rachel. While we are here, Dad glared at me, his tone icy. Our Wilson family has always had strict discipline. I don't know where you learned such bad behavior, being jealous of Rachel and even trying to steal her treatment opportunity. Mom scolded, pointing at me. If I had known, I never should have given birth to you in a corner, hidden from my parents' view. Rachel smiled at me, her eyes full of provocation. I lowered my gaze. I had heard these words from my parents countless times before. In the past, I would have argued with them and exposed Rachel's true nature in front of everyone, even though my parents never believed a word I said. But now I was tired, too exhausted to fight anymore. Well, it's good you're here. I have something to discuss with you. Dad spoke up. I smiled faintly. Dad, I have something to tell you too. Doesn't Rachel want my store, business and company? I've thought it over. She can have it all. Dad was stunned for a moment. Mom also looked at me in surprise. How did you know I was going to talk to you about this today? You agree? I forced a smile. No wonder they were shocked and kept confirming. Rachel had wanted my hard-earned businesses for a long time. My parents had said all kinds of things, good and bad, trying to get me to hand over my life's work to Rachel, but I had always refused. Now that I was dying anyway, these things meant nothing to me. Seeing I looked serious, Mom finally smiled in relief and stepped forward to pat my head. You've finally come to your senses. Rachel has always been more talented than you, even when you were in school. Although she's sick now, her financial management skills are better than yours, Mom said. We'll feel much more at ease if you let her take over your stores and company. I forced another smile and handed the transfer documents to Rachel. After seeing Rachel sign, my parents happily held my hands, calling me a good child. Over and over, I felt a hint of bitter irony in my heart. How laughable! Only when I gave in to Rachel would Mom smile at me. But I was also curious if Mom discovered Rachel's true nature after I died, which she and Dad regretted that evening. I returned home to find my husband, Frank, and daughter Lily, cooking in the kitchen. Perhaps because of my late-stage cancer, I closed the door softly. The father-daughter pair seemed not to notice, laughing as they cooked together. Frank turned around with a plate of food and saw me. His smile froze for a moment, before returning to normal. Chloe, when did you get back? I didn't hear you come in. I silently looked at the dish in Frank's hands. Stir-fried vegetables. Rachel's favorite. The presentation rivaled that of a professional chef. How ironic. I was about to die, and only now did I learn that Frank, my husband of 5 years, could cook in the past. He always complained about my cooking under Frank's influence. Lily gradually started criticizing me too. I had worked so hard for this family, but in the end, I didn't earn an ounce of respect in the past. I might have started screaming hysterically by now, but now I just calmly walked past them and sat on the couch sorting through the things in my bag, seeing my silence. Frank hesitated for a moment. He put the dish on the table and walked over. Chloe, there's something I want to discuss with you today. Frank rubbed his nose awkwardly, hesitating before continuing. It's about your sister, Rachel. My heart sank. A bad feeling suddenly washed over me. Frank's next words left me stunned. After Rachel finishes her cancer treatment, she's been feeling very depressed. So your parents suggested I marry Rachel to cheer her up. My ears were ringing. It took a long time before I found my voice again. So you agreed? Frank sighed. Chloe, even though Rachel isn't your biological sister, she's still family. After your parents adopted her, it's just to cheer her up. Once Rachel is discharged, I'll still be your husband and Lily's father. Before I could speak, Lily chimed in. That's right, Mom. Aunt Rachel has been so sad lately. You need to understand. I silently looked at the father and daughter in front of me. This was the man I had loved for years. This was the child I had raised with such difficulty. I had never done anything wrong. I had given my all to my family, husband, and child. I could face them with a clear conscience in the end. This was how they repaid me with betrayal, but it didn't matter now. If Rachel wanted everything, I would give it all to her. I didn't want any of it anymore. I raised my head to look at Frank. All right, I agree. Frank's eyes flashed with surprise. Really? He quickly took out divorce papers from a drawer and placed them on the table. I smirked inwardly. Oh, Frank, you can't even bother to hide your patience. I picked up the pen and quickly signed my name. After signing, Frank's face was full of relief. His expression was solemn, yet affectionate. Chloe, once Rachel is discharged, we'll remarry. Don't worry, I'll never let you down. Frank finished speaking and signed the divorce papers as well. After signing, he looked at me and sighed. Chloe, you've become much more sensible than before. I've made mistakes in the past too. I was wrong. After Rachel gets better, I'll never let you worry about anything again. That's right, Mom. Lily chimed in like a little adult. Mom is so good to Aunt Rachel. I'm proud of you. Looking at them, my heart turned to ashes. Before this, I had held out one last shred of hope for Frank and Lily. But now forget it. I had no expectations left except for death. I stood up, intending to go back to my room to rest. A wave of intense dizziness hit me. I couldn't help but faint. In the last moment before everything went black, I saw Frank's worried face. I was jolted awake by a wave of cold. When I opened my eyes, I was surprised to find myself still lying on the floor. Frank and Lily were looking at me with disappointed expressions. Dad, I told you Mom was faking again. Lily said, Mom, can you stop being so childish? You're really holding us up from going to visit Aunt Rachel at the hospital. Faking Frank also spoke up with disappointment. Chloe, can you stop making a scene? I already told you, even though we're divorced, you're still the one I love. There's no need to use such childish tricks to test me. After hearing Frank's words, I finally understood the pain-blocking medication I had taken would suppress all symptoms for these 3 days. During this time, I would look like a normal, healthy person. But the side effects were severe. After 3 days, I would die from organ failure. It seemed the medication was working quite well. I forced myself to stand up. It's probably just low blood sugar. I'm fine. I'll go to the hospital with you. There are some transfer documents Rachel still needs to sign. Frank nodded. There was no surprise on his face. My parents must have told him in advance at the hospital. Rachel was watching TV in her room. Chloe, you're here. Rachel's face was still very pale, but her spirit seemed much better. However, I didn't miss the smugness and arrogance in her eyes. Chloe, thank you for trusting me to manage your businesses. Don't worry, I won't let you down. That's right, Chloe. With Rachel managing your stores and company, you can stay home and collect dividends every day. How nice, Mom said with a smile. I took out the remaining documents from my bag. In that case, I'll let her manage all my assets too. That way I won't have to worry about anything in the future. Everyone in the room froze. Chloe, are you serious? You want to give Rachel all your assets? Frank grabbed my arm, his eyes full of shock. This time, it was my turn to be confused. In the past they had always sided with Rachel, whatever Rachel wanted. They gave her. If I refused, they would berate me endlessly. How come now that I was giving Rachel everything they suddenly didn't understand? Dad was the first to recover. His eyes were full of approval. This child has finally come to her senses. Our efforts in raising you weren't wasted. Chloe, it's good that you've learned to accept your sister. Now, Mom added, from now on, you two can live well together. Even when we're old, we can rest easy. Rest easy? Dad, Mom, you've been fooled by Rachel's act for too many years. Do you really believe Rachel will manage everything? Well, my head started spinning again. My nose felt itchy. When I touched it, I realized it was a nosebleed. Chloe, why are you getting a nosebleed? The weather isn't even dry, Mom asked. I paused as I wiped the blood. In the end, I couldn't help but look at them and speak. Dad, Mom, if I really died from illness one day, would you regret it? But Mom's expression didn't even change. She just smiled and glanced at me. Your face looks so healthy. How could you possibly die from illness? Don't say such unlucky things. Yes, Rachel is different. We need to make sure she gets proper nutrition once she recovers, Dad said, looking at Rachel with concern. I agree, Lily chimed in. Mom looks so healthy. And Rachel is the one we're most worried about. The last glimmer of hope in my heart disappeared completely. I had nothing left to look forward to. I lowered my head to look at Lily and smiled as I spoke. Lily, didn't you always want Rachel to be your real mom? I agree. Now Rachel is your mom. Now, why don't you call her Mom? Lily's eyes lit up with joy. Lily, I smiled faintly, after you call her Mom. You can always eat the food she cooks and have her accompany you from now on. Isn't that what you've always wished for? Are you happy? Lily jumped up excitedly. Yay! Mom is the best. Thank you, Mom. With that, Lily let go of my hand and hugged Rachel. My parents and Frank watched the scene with satisfaction. I turned to leave, taking one last look at them. My parents were playing with Lily alongside Rachel. Frank was watching with a smile. No one noticed me. I closed the door to the hospital room and left with only 1 day left until my death. I had nowhere to go. My life had been so busy and rushed. I had never taken the time to truly enjoy myself. I booked a ticket to Bee City to see the ocean at night. I had wanted to go hiking too, but I couldn't hold on any longer.